program will begin shortly. Launch sequence. Activate. Warning, the following content is not politically correct. Viewer discretion is advised.
Welcome back to the channel today, everyone. I am your host. I'm Sarah Higdon. Sorry about yesterday. I know this show is usually on Monday nights. I was getting ready for the show. Everything was looking good. And then about like an hour, I think, before the show, I started not feeling very good. So, I had to take the night off. But we are back tonight, and so we're gonna talk about some things. We got some good news stories, some crazy stories, and just some weird stories. We're gonna talk about everything. So right now, let's jump into some of these stories that we're talking about. So the first story, if you remember, we've talked about a lot of stuff on this show before in the past. So this is one of those good news stories. So a West Virginia judge ruled students who the young female athlete that protest in the shot put a few weeks ago cannot be punished for doing that. So if you remember the story, the 5 girls on one team, they were competing against a trans athlete, so a male competing with them, and they instead of competing, they did what a lot of people say that they should do, and they stepped out. So it was the shot put, so they decided to not compete. And initially the school said because they refused to compete, they would not be allowed, they basically banned them from the next competitions too. The judge in the case ruled this week that the girls cannot be banned for protesting and granted the temporary injunction until it can basically move through the court. So it can't be punished until it's still got to go through the court system, right? And it's sad that we talked about it before when this story came up. It's sad that we're asking young girls to be the ones to do these protests. It should be something that's fairly, common sense, that males should not be competing with females in sports, and yet here we are. And it's, young middle school girls who are having to take the brunt to protest these things, and it's not right. And so it's good on them. Glad the courts saw that protesting should be allowed. These students shouldn't be punished for standing up for themselves. But this is the problem. I mean, we see one of the reasons why a lot of young females are not going to come out is because they're afraid that if they do protest, and these are middle schoolers, so they're not looking at college scholarships or anything like that. But when you're looking at college athletes who have scholarships, you're looking at high school students who are looking to get scholarships. It's very difficult for them to be out there protesting because they don't want to be seen as disruptors that a school doesn't want to have on their team. But then also they're not towing the line of what is considered politically correct. So that's why it really does. It takes more people to step up, and unfortunately, it's going to come down to a lot of these young girls that do exactly what these middle school girls did, and that's not compete. So this is good news to see that happen. Another story, and I'm not going to say what I think about it, but so the Southern Poverty Law Center, who, as you know, is a hate group of themselves, who goes around and placing people on hate group like watch lists. Well, just recently it just came out that they had to they're cutting around 25% of their staff. Um, you know, let me see. I thought I had- Yeah, they're cutting around 25% of their staff. So you couldn't have seen it happen to a better group. Um, they've had, like Andy said, many of the people it's employed in recent years are extremists, including one indicted in the Antifa terrorism RICO case, which is actually happening here in Atlanta after they attacked the Cop City location down here. But yeah, they're gutting, and I've been listed in the Southern Poverty Law Center. I've been quoted in the Gays Against Groomers article, and so usually when you get quoted by them, it's become at this point it's a rite of passage, or it's a it's a it's I mean it becomes a badge of honor is what I was looking for. Yeah, so it becomes a badge of honor when that happens. So moving to the next story. um So I think we talked about this. We would have talked about this a long time ago. If you remember, there was the eighth grade student who was sent home and then spoke at the next school board meeting because he was basically sent home for wearing a shirt that said there are only two genders. Um, and unfortunately, um, the courts ruled against the student. So basically, they're saying that you know, middle school, eighth grade, what is it, eighth grade? So eighth grade students don't have First Amendment rights while in public schools, but it's kind of crazy because he just wearing a shirt that says there are only two genders. It's a statement of fact. It's a statement of his belief system. And the whole point behind this was that so he wore the shirt to school, was sent home, came back again, and it had only two, and he put tape over that said censored on it. And then the school then again ordered him to remove the shirt. Um, the statement by their senior counsel for the Alliance Defending Freedom is exactly right. It says this case isn't about t-shirts, it's about public schools telling a middle schooler that he isn't allowed to express his view that differs from their own. To go on, says the school actively promotes its view about gender through protesters and pride events, and it encourages students to wear clothing with messages on the same topic, so long as the clothing expresses the school's preferred views on the topic. And I think that's indicative of really what's happening, right? Is you can express your views as long as they go along with the pseudoscience that is queer theory and gender ideology. But if you express a different belief other than that, then you're not allowed it's banned, it's forbidden. um where if you're going to allow pride stuff, and you're going to allow people to wear clothing with messages of pride and queerness and all that stuff, then you have to allow a person to wear clothing with their views and beliefs on it, right? Seems like that would be equality. Now, if you want to ban a student and you want to say this is part of the dress code and you can't wear this stuff like as part of the dress code, then you also have to ban the other ideology that's on the opposite side of that. they try to say that this is a hate speech conduct, but it's not hate speech. It's general based on science and belief. In fact, I mean, queer theory is based on postmodernism. So, you know, schools are supposed to teach science. What are they teaching students if they're teaching that? So that's sad, and I hope that this. I don't know. I'm assuming that there's going to be some sort of appeal process. Um, I don't know. I don't know how that works with that, but they. So that's one in the loss category, I would say. And it's a loss for free speech, and it's a loss for equality, and it's a loss to show that one side's ideology is preferred over the other side's ideology. Now for the big story of the last couple days. If you remember, the influencer who went topless at the White House last year during Pride was banned from the White House during Pride, but that was after taking pictures with Joe Biden and other people that were there. But remember, they flashed, they they went topless, showed their enhanced breasts, and next to two topless trans men, I'm assuming too. It's a trans influencer. Well, now has been accused of sexual assault by 5 different people. So really, like, what is it with the people that are being, that the left is propagating as their they're the people that they want to be like, that they want the perception to be created of. Oh, hey, welcome in. But what is it about the people that they choose to elevate into these statuses that seem to all start to go into a way of where they have spokespeople? Yes. Why are the spokespeople for the left so awful? Yeah, I'm feeling better, thank you. Why are they such awful people? Like, it seems like every single one that comes out here, and it really, I think, comes down to the personality, right? Um, they're out here trying to force everybody else to like society to bend to their will. So if they have that type of narcissism to where society can bend to their will, what makes you think that they wouldn't do that on an individualist level? Like they there's people that, I mean, there is the whole um innocent until proven guilty, which this is all alleged, so it's not confirmed fact. But what we will say is, there are alleged emails that came from this person to this trans man. Um, Basically, we're saying that they admitted to it. Um, the person who came out goes by Trans Muscle Bear on Twitter. Um, and the post says, if any of you have seen me go months on end without ever posting on social media, it was because learning how to navigate life after abuse that was nonstop for a year was too burdensome of an emotional load for me to bear at sometimes. I attempted. Oh my god. Son of okay. Okay. I attempted to end my own life on more than one occasion due to how depressed I was from the trauma. After my third surgery, I went nearly 2 years without kissing or intimacy of any kind. I had lost all hope. I couldn't even entertain the idea of ever experiencing intimacy again. Um, and then name the person said, in case y'all haven't made the connection. The Rose Montoya is the abuser slash alleged. I'm gonna say alleged abuser slash rapist I've been posting about in recent months. I found out she's been stalking me for years and still has naked photos of me that she looks at. I can't tell you how uncomfortable that makes me. She had filed a restraining order against me because she wanted to keep me from speaking publicly about this. Her restraining order was denied. If she continues to try to threaten me with legal action, I have no issue to present her confession to a judge to make it public record. Now, there's like I said, there are allegations on this that there are more. This person says that claims that there are more. There are what, 5 more um or 4 more people that they know about that are afraid to come forward. And that's the thing. Because then you come forward and these people that have followings, when you come forward, then their followings will come after you. And the people on the left, it's very much like a cult. When you leave, the people there will come after you, just like any cult like personality, and no matter what it's for. You would hope that they would turn on people like this and excommunicate them from the community, but it doesn't seem to happen enough. There doesn't seem to be enough accountability, especially among like trans people on that side. And now I've heard through the grapevine from other people and that are closer to the community than me, because I don't know anybody in this community, y'all, because they're not my I don't jive with like anybody else. I don't belong to the community because I'm outspoken against what a lot of what happens in this community. And there's people now like Brianna Wu, who's out there talking against, what the leftist community has become. So there are good people on that side who will speak out against this stuff and offer, and be reasonable and understand that like you need to rein this stuff in. Um, but I've heard I don't know. There's a lot of this that I've heard through the grapevine that happens, especially in that community, that it's it's made me question um, whether I'm accurate when I say I think that this is still kind of a public. It's hard to say because it's like, is this just the public perception? Because like I've constantly said in the past, is that you know the reason why so many trans people don't come and speak out is because they live this comfortable stealth lifestyle. And why would they step out of their bubble when they're going to get attacked by both sides? So I would say that, I've always kind of constantly said that I think that this is kind of still just like the public perception. It's the squeaky grease or squeaky wheel getting the grease. But I'm telling you, when you start to hear a lot of this coming out from the community and not just publicly, um, and not just public people, it's really starting to make me question whether my perception of the community is accurate. I don't know. It still seems plausible. Still seems like most of the people within the trans community just aren't public people and are just living their lives, but I don't know. And when you get more stories like this and then you hear stories behind the scenes, you just don't know. And of not public people. So you just don't. But we need to continue to call out this behavior, not use these people as the spokesperson for the community that get to go to the White House so that they can be topless at the White House. It's like seriously, the people that get to go to the White House, like how does that even like think about this? You have somebody like Blossom, who was in that Jubilee debate with me, got to go to the White House, is awful. Not saying is to the level of um this of Rosalind. Is that what it is? Um But is that? Yeah, not saying it's to the Rose, not to the same degree as this, but those are your spokespeople. Those are the people that get the attention. Those are the people that get to go to the White House. This person got to go to the White House. Think about that. I mean, this person was, and then it comes out, and this is the perception that's created about our community. And where is the community? Like, this person has violated trans men, so females, and or allegedly violated trans men, so females. Um, so like, were this person in a female prison? I would hope not, because this person violates females. And this is the email apparently this person sent says, "I'm really sorry I broke your trust and violated you. I'm heartbroken and feel awful. Even in our conversations, you never directly called me out or brought up this situation. I wish you told me that you wanted to reconnect with me and had told me all of this long ago. I genuinely thought for a while that you were triggered by me simply having a I don't, it's not pulling up. I know what it says, but it's not pulling the entire picture up. And it caused me so much pain just for you. Now I understand why you kept pulling away. I don't blame you. It was talking simply having a penis. It said phallus. Yeah. Now I understand why you kept pulling away. I don't blame you. I just wish I knew why. I'm sorry I forced myself on you. I'm sorry I made you feel that way. That was horrible of me. I told myself I'd never do like something like that to someone else. And here we are. I'm surprised you didn't break up with me. I wish we'd gone to therapy. I wish you could have talked this through and built trust, blah, blah, blah. If this email did come from that person and the context is what we're talking about, then it would seem fairly shut and dry. Again, it's alleged still, and there's other known victims. And what's sad is that he's not even asking for her to be locked up, not even asking for her to be charged, just trying to warn people and see if she's going to take accountability. But he said confirmed 4 other victims, so 5 victims total. And apparently this happened over the course of a few years. So there's 2 that have come forward publicly. There's this person and Elijah, and I don't know who Elijah is, but stop propping up horrible people. It does your community absolutely no good. None. And it creates a bad perception for all of us. I'm going to continue to call out people like this. You already know that. And the activists will call me whatever names that they want. I don't care. But it's not going to take me and basically what Blair White and Buck Angel and Marcus out here calling this out. It's going to take people from that side. It's going to take people from within that community like this person to come out and be speaking against them. That's what it's going to take. So yeah. But moving on to the next story. The title story for this episode, we have a Nashville journalist right now is facing jail time. So this is crazy to me. So the head of, or the owner and journalist of the Nashville Star is basically being they're trying to force him to reveal his sources who leaked the source that leaked the documents of the Nashville school shooters' writings. So the manifesto, the shooter, Audrey Hale. I broke my one rule: I don't ever say their names on here, but sorry. So the person at the Covington shooters manifesto, they've been leaking. So there's been a leak, and there's been pages of the manifesto that have gotten out to journalists, and it's been reported on by first Stephen Crowder. So a lot of Crowder got some documents, and then the Daily Wire got some of the documents. But they've all kind of, I believe, they've all gone through the Nashville Star, and it's a leak within the police. But the thing is now they're threatening this journalist. If he doesn't reveal his sources, he could be facing contempt of. It's a contempt. What is it? Contempt of. Yeah, he can be held in contempt for publishing the leaked documents. If he doesn't come to this hearing, it's appear for court for a show cause hearing on June 17th, which is actually yesterday. So I didn't see what happened there. But this is crazy to me that, like, if you can shut down, if you can jail a journalist for not providing sources, then we have no free press. Like, this has kind of been the statute that journalists don't have to reveal who they get their information from, because it's a system of it. It's like to use the analogy, a doctor-patient confidentiality thing, where if you give something to a journalist, it's the reason why you would give something and leak stuff to journalists, that they could actually do their job, which is to put a checks and balances on the government. Then if you can stop them from being that checks and balances, then we don't have a free press, because then the government can seize and see who your sources are, and then you will have no more sources. Your sources are not going to trust that by them giving you information that it's going to be protected. It's basically been like, it's really what journalist sources are all should be covered under whistleblower protections. That they can't be punished for blowing the whistle on this. Now, this again is kind of the same thing, but they're just revealing sources. But like we've talked about this before, it started with Julian Assange. They're charging Julian Assange with espionage simply for publishing information that he got that was classified information. Now, a lot of people would say he published classified information, and so that is wrong. But it wasn't him who actually obtained the classified information. He just published it. So if him publishing it from, Edward Snowden, then if that's wrong, then sorry. But like, if that's wrong, then the New York Post publishing the same story coming from WikiLeaks would be wrong too, right? So they're still trying to stop this from happening. But yeah, so let me see. What's his name? So Daniel Horowitz is the First Amendment lawyer who's working on this case. On behalf of him, hired by Leahy, filed an emergency motion to stay on Wednesday, arguing freedom of the press and state law violations. Says with due respect to the court, this court's show cause order violated Tennessee code, Tennessee's shield law, which convenes that Tennessee's contempt law deprives Mr. Leahy of a minimum due process guarantees, suffers from what other serious constitutional infirmities. Yeah. And apparently because they said, they're not telling him what he is to show cause. So how can he be tried if he doesn't know what he's being charged with? Like, if he was going to be charged with something, how can he be charged with something if he doesn't like, how can he show cause to not do something if he doesn't know what it is? The judge denounced, and so this is the thing, is the judge in this case denounced the First Amendment violations, that if she determines a leak did in fact occur by any part of this case, that such action was in violation of the orders of this court, or that there has been any abuse of or unlawful interference with the process or proceedings of the court, or any violation as set forth in Tennessee code, this court may then enter an order of notice appointing an attorney for investigating purposes to initiate, prosecute contempt citation. And apparently because the leak violated the court ruling that the manifesto was to go to the families of the victims and they could decide what to do with it, which I don't think that ever happened. I think it went straight to I think that they decided to not even leak it at all, because they said if it's published or anything like that, they said it would its release they feared that it would spark copycat mass shooters, and it would yeah, they said it would create copycats, and they said it was like a blueprint. Pretty sure they said it was like a blueprint for mass murder. It was really everything that they were saying about it was kind of weird. But the pages that we've seen has all been, it's been really weird. It's been anti-white, using racial slurs. Actually used the F word, the FA word, to talk about gay people. Was very anti-Christian. So I mean, the pages that had been released are kind of, so it's just like antisocial behavior, stuff like that. Like, it doesn't, it's, I don't know. I read quite a bit of the manifesto, and it's of what's been published, and it just seems very chaotic. Like, everything that's come out is chaotic. So, but again, like, no journalist should be jailed for simply reporting. That's a journalist's job, is to report the facts. When they are given information, they can publish it. I mean, even with like the Twitter files, they tried to get they were trying to get the two journalists there to Michael Schellenberger and Matt Taibbi. They were trying to get them to reveal their sources, and it was like, when they did that, like, everybody condemned them, even like politicians. The politicians were like, they were like, "Are you trying to get me to reveal my sources?" And they're like, "No. I know you can't reveal your sources. Like, it's well known that your sources should be protected." But again, and it's like, if this person is being charged, then why isn't anybody else that published the items also being charged? Like, that's what I mean with like the WikiLeaks stuff. WikiLeaks published it, but then New York Post, Washington Post, New York Times, like, all of them then published it too. but they just weren't the original source for it. But neither was WikiLeaks. They were the fall guy. So, all right, moving on, and then you move to other crazy stuff. Like you go from the student who wants to wear who just wears a shirt that says there's only two genders, to California where they have moved to ban schools from notifying parents if a child changes their pronouns. It's just another move by a leftist state to give children certain autonomy over themselves and keep their parents in the dark, and basically make it so that parents or children can decide everything for themselves there, right? Because they don't belong to their parents. The state. They belong to the state, and I think the state wants them to know that this is an indoctrination tactic for the state. The state wants children to know that they run their house, because whatever they say, you don't want to get a sex change, or you want to get a sex change operation, but your parents won't let you, you can become a ward of the state and they'll give it to you. You want your school, you don't want your school to tell your parents that you're going by a different name and pronoun at school, it's okay. It's banned anyways. So now nobody at the school can tell your parents. So it says the bill seeks to prohibit school districts and governing bodies of other educational institutions from enacting or enforcing any policy, rule, or administrative regulation that requires an employee or a contract disclose any information related to a pupil's sexual orientation, gender identity, or gender expression to any other person without the pupil's consent, unless otherwise required by law as provided. Hi, Colleen. Welcome in. Thank you. So yeah, so without the pupil's consent, they're not allowed to do this. So kind of the opposite of what we tried to do in Louisiana, forcing written permission before they could start using a different name or pronouns. Now, California wants to give children the authorization to even tell their parents what's going on with them. It's like it's so interesting watching California go so far, just straying away from what would be even reasonable to just straight crazy. And again, this is what breeds like the people that we talked about earlier in the show. That is who is running California. These are also the same people, though. Remember this. So California also has a law, and I know this is one that Julian Michaels talked about this the other day. This what really struck her and moved her away. What made her leave California was when they enacted the law that says if a child and an adult are within 10 years of age, then that adult cannot be put on this. Like if that child is 14 and that adult is 24, then that adult cannot be put on the sex they won't be put on the sex registry list if those two have a relationship, because they believe a 14-year-old can consent in that regard, whether if they're as long as they're within 10 years of age. that's what you're dealing with in California. And it's such a shame because like the Los Angeles area, I've only been the one time, and it's such a nice area that I don't you hate to see such a unique, beautiful place just run down by garbage policies. Um, I mean, if you remember, I talked to Pamela last week, whose book's right there. Go read it. Um, about leaving California. I don't know why any reasonable, person would stay in California unless they have to. And I think most are moving, but some are staying. But I think that for the most part, though, they can't leave California. So, for different reasons, one or different ways or another, but it doesn't make sense. And I mean, talking about California, if you didn't see this story, this is another crazy story. So apparently U-turns are gay. Like, I mean, if a neighborhood in Los Angeles removed a no U-turn sign because it was offensive to the LGBT community, they're gay. No, I don't get this. Like, if it was I would think that like only straight roads, right? Only straights. Is that what it is? If you can't do U-turns, then you can only drive straight. And since you're not straight, no, actually, it's because of cruising. Now, back in the day, I've not quite. I'm about in that age, but cruising is how people used to go and meet people. So, it's a term in the LGBT community, but like no cruising signs were deemed offensive. But cruising wasn't just something that LGBT people did. Like a lot of like high school kids would drive up and down the street, right? So they would just drive the street in their cars, like, and it was almost a way to like hang out with friends and loiter and do all that stuff. Like we had a place when we used to go on vacation up to northern Michigan. There was a small town that we would go to, and they would still the high school kids really didn't have a whole lot to do, so they would still like cruise the streets and think it was cool. And it was, even in Detroit, they still have the Woodward Dream Cruise every year, which to kind of commemorate. And it's just about driving nice cars up and down the street usually. Now I think the no cruising signs and stuff like that, again, there is like some symbolism, some to the LGBT, because now you generally only hear it within the gay community, but cruising used to be a thing like for everybody. And it apparently the no U-turns was because they didn't want you to turn around in the street to drive back up and down the streets. Like that would change anything, but it's yeah. No, you're absolutely right. PD Pumpkins says it's almost as silly as when people were pissed off about crosswalk lights only being men. Like, this is what we're worried about. We're worried about no U-turn signs. No, the funniest thing about this, though, let me see. Is this the? No, it's not. The funniest thing about this, though, is the person who's like advocating for this. Look at. I don't know if this is real. Like when I saw this, I'm like, this can't be real. I don't know. It's definitely not the real name, but look at this person's name. Let me see if it loads up.
One symbol your home in minutes. Tired of hot and stuffy rooms during summer? And former NASA engineer.
LA City Council members Hugo Soto Martinez and Nithya Raman were on hand today to help remove the signs. They say the no cruising and no U-turn signs were put up in the 1990s to prevent people in the gay community from meeting up with other gay people.
I was also surprised that these these U-turn signs were still up. And at first, they seem a little.
The person's name is maybe a girl. I can't. I mean, I bet that's not a real name, unless they changed it to that. But really, like, I feel like it's a troll. Like, when people call in, they use like fake names when they call in somewhere. Like, I feel like that's what it is. I don't know. I saw it. I saw a no U-turn sign by my house the other day. I felt concerned. Since finding out that no U-turn signs are homophobic, I found out I lived in a homophobic area, and so I'm concerned now. What should I do? Should I move? Where am I going to move to? Oh, I can move. I mean, I guess I can move to this county in Los Angeles where the no U-turn signs, there are none anymore. U-turns are allowed. And as a bisexual, U-turns need to be allowed because we just drive in circles. Oh, crazy people. Let's see, what else is in the news? ATF. So the Supreme Court strikes down the bump stock ban. That was a big win. $8 million new Ukraine aid. Well, the Senate is signing up. The Senate is going to force women to sign up for the draft. Ukraine getting more aid. Russia putting submarines near Cuba. Women going to be forced to go into the draft. The draft is other than that you're getting paid for it, the draft is essentially slavery. I don't know how you can see it any other way. It's immoral and needs to be eradicated in general. But yet you have people from both sides of the aisle pushing to force people to sign up for it. And now they're going to force women to sign up for it. But at the same time, you kind of got to say, hey, feminist, you want equality. This is how you get equality. This is equal. I think, like I said, I think the draft is, I sometimes think that the draft stuff, when it comes up, I think it's like this, it's almost like, it feels like it's 4D chess sometimes. Like, it's the people that are positioning for it are like, we don't really want this. This is just kind of the poison pill to kill the draft in general. Hopefully. Sometimes I think that. But generally, I don't think it. Then I realized that almost all politicians are evil and they don't really care about you. And so most are evil neocons that would send your children to war. And it's like the people that suffer the most under the draft are people that don't have to deal with the consequences of sending their loved ones to war. Because most politicians these days, especially, their loved ones are older. Or you're like Lindsey Graham, who is the biggest neocon out there, and he doesn't have kids. I don't know. Okay, so right now, this one was pretty big because this was the first time ever that 538 has ever in any of the races that Donald Trump has been has predicted that Donald Trump will win an election. This is the first time ever. So if he's leading this, if he's forecasted to win in this race, hold on, folks. And this is after he's been found guilty. He's a felon. It doesn't seem to affect him. Now they're predicting he's going to win. Which, I mean, there's been and now you have the White House. You have KGP out here. They're asking about all these videos of President Biden getting wandering off when he was overseas, which he did wander off. He was going to talk to, like, he went over, he wandered away from the G7 people as they were watching skydivers. He was talking to one of the skydivers over there, but he started wandering off. They had to pull him back. I didn't watch the video where he supposedly froze on stage with Obama and them, but I did watch this. So, but the White House is telling you they are just cheap fakes, not deep fakes, but cheap fakes here.
Secondly, there seems to be a sort of rash of videos that have been edited to make the president appear especially frail or mentally confused. I'm wondering if the White House is especially worried about the fact that this appears to be a pattern that we're seeing more often.
Yeah, and I think you all have called this cheap fakes video, and that's exactly what they are. They are cheap fakes video. They are done in bad faith, and some of your news organization have been very clear, have stressed that these the right wing critics of the president have a credibility problem because of the fact checkers have repeatedly caught them pushing misinformation, disinformation, and so we see this, and this is something coming from your part of the world, calling them cheap fakes and misinformation. And I'll quote the Washington Post, where they wrote about this, and they said how Republicans use misleading videos to attack Biden in a 24-hour period. And to their credit, we have a conservative Washington Examiner did call them out as well, calling out the New York Post. Ironically, several recent cheap fakes actually attacked the president for thanking troops. That is what they're attacking the president for. Both in Normandy, this happened, and again in Italy. And I think that it tells you everything that we need to know about how desperate Republicans are here. And
it's interesting because then there was a left-wing commentator today that posted a picture of Donald Trump, and if you watch the video, he was grabbed his son's hand for a second, like giving him high five after his speech. And they posted the picture saying he needed to be escorted off, but they didn't actually show the video. Yeah, we got this video that just came out today. I wonder if this is a cheap fake. I wonder if this is a deep fake. Let's see. Did you see this? This is funny. It's actually not funny. I think that there's a lot of people saying that Biden's not going to be the nominee, which it's hard to see them Democrats putting Biden into office after stuff like this.
Thank all the members of Congress and Homeland Security Secretary. I'm not sure you're going to introduce you. Thank all the members of Congress and Homeland Security Secretary. I'm not sure you're going to introduce you. Thank all the
what did he say? See, there's multiple videos where we've seen that Joe Biden mumbles off like this, where he's not really, he doesn't know what he's saying. He was starting to talk and then just starts to trail off and doesn't know what he's saying. So I don't know. We'll see. We will see. I will. We got a presidential debate next week, and it's actually here in Atlanta, so we're gonna have some fun there. Stay tuned for that because I've got some information to share on that. But we'll see. We'll see how he does there. Inside the debate hall, nobody is allowed in. Nobody. Not even press. I can tell you for a fact that there's no audience allowed. So they weren't selling tickets. There's no audience allowed in the debate hall. And the press only has access to the spin room. There is no press access in the debate hall either. So press has no access to arrivals. So to Biden and Trump getting to the venue, nor will they have access to the debate hall. I can tell you that. All for a fact, it's actually on their it's on CNN's website. But so it'll be interesting how Biden handles this. This is gonna be crazy, but we can talk about that next Monday. So yeah. I skipped a bunch of stuff we were going to talk about. Let's talk about this for real quick. We got a little bit of time for one more segment. So let's talk about CNN and talk about lying media. CNN does it again. They published a video where they tried to go to Trump supporters and make them seem dumb and try to make it seem like saying that America is not, because America's not, they say, oh, it's, right wingers don't think America is a democracy. They always say it's a republic. And so they went out to
touts his re-election campaign as a fight to preserve democracy. But if you ask some Trump supporters, the former president is not a threat to democracy because the United States is not a democracy. CNN's Donnie O'Sullivan spoke to some of those supporters.
What happens if Trump loses?
I don't see him losing.
I don't think he lost the election, to be honest.
Do you think he's going to win?
Yes. Without a doubt. No doubt.
What if he doesn't this time? What happens to the country?
We're in trouble.
Bad for democracy, that he's bad for American democracy.
We are a republic.
We're a republic.
We are not a
representative
democracy.
Republic. We're not a democracy.
One thing we've been hearing at Trump rallies like this over the past
Is a democracy. It was founded as a democracy.
I've heard a lot of conspiracy theories. I hear a lot of things out on the road. But to hear Americans, people who describe themselves as patriots, say that America is not a democracy, that stopped me in my tracks.
You are hearing people say America is not a democracy because there are people around Trump who want them to be saying that, who've been planting that narrative.
Is America a democracy?
Yes. No, I don't. I think, well, not right now. See, government control. Democracy and the word republic have often been used interchangeably. There isn't a meaningful difference between them.
There is
so much of the warnings and criticism about Trump is that.
This is what I wanted to point that section out of this, because CNN's expert is telling you that there's no meaningful difference between a republic and a democracy, but there is. And we're a constitutional democracy, or we are a constitutional republic. Constitutional is very important there, because our right, so a democracy is direct vote. So everybody votes, 50% wins everything. So, right, 50% wins. And so the majority rules. We are not a democracy because the majority doesn't rule. So a constitution set up to protect the majority from enacting tyranny on the minority. See why we're not a democracy? Why we aren't a democracy? Sure, we vote, which is a democratic system of voting. We vote for our candidates, but we are not a democracy. And so that's the whole reason, like for president, there's a reason why we have the electoral college. The reason why we have the electoral college and we don't go based off of straight 50% vote, we go off of states because they are representatives. So each state votes for president and they have delegations that vote based on population size. And so you're not going to get a straight 50%. There's a reason why in the United States Senate, most bills need to be passed with a 60% vote in the Senate. So 60 people, they need 60 people instead of 50 people to pass bills, because it's not even a straight democracy in our Senate. So for them to say there's no meaningful difference between a republic and a democracy means that they don't know what they're talking about. Unfortunately, I do think that there's an issue where a lot of people, they hear the words and they say them without understanding the meaning. That's why I'm trying to bring this up and why I want to talk to y'all about it, because you have to understand the difference. Like, I'm explaining the difference to you, whereas they show some people in this clip that they couldn't really explain the difference. They didn't know the difference. They had just known that we're a republic. So this, like, so many people need to go back and look at, civics and social studies, because it's important to understand the difference. It's important to understand why democracy is not the best way, is not the system that we have, and it's for a very good reason, because majority does not rule, and we have a constitution that protects all of our rights, and the majority can't take those rights away. And you're right, Ronnie, schools have failed us. If you can't walk out of school understanding the difference between a democracy and a republic, and a constitutional republic, a representative republic, then schools have failed you. So go know what you're talking about before, if you're going to these things like this, because if they're going to ask you questions like this, you got to know what you're talking about. If you're going to use the words that we all know, everybody says these words, but not everybody knows what they mean. And we do the same thing. I mean, when you see like man on the street interviews, you see people from the right doing it to people on the left. They go up to them and they don't know what they're talking about. They say these words, but they don't know what they're talking about. You can't be that person. You have to know the difference. You have to know what you're saying when you speak to people. Like, if they come up to you on the street and you're going to talk to them, and if you don't feel comfortable, if you don't think you're going to be able to answer these questions, don't talk to them. But understand the difference. Educate yourself into the words that people say and what's going on. With that, though, I'm going to leave you guys with that. Thank you for joining me on Tuesday. Again, it's a little bit different day. Tuesdays are a little bit, I like Mondays. I do like Mondays a lot better. But thank you. Obviously, like I said, I wasn't feeling great yesterday. I'm feeling a lot better today. Got through the full episode. Had a lot more we could talk about too. So, but if you haven't already, click that like and subscribe button below. Follow me across all social media platforms, and I will see you next time.